Hey, how you doing? My name is Liam, this is my hobby room, and today we're doing some mixed media weathering. Alright, so we're gonna do some mixed media weathering, and that is a term I like to use for, just a weathering job that has multiple different types of weathering stuff. Multiple supplies layered on top of one another, and I think any good weathering job typically has a variety of different supplies layered on top of one another, just to provide that really deep, rich look to whatever's being weathered. I think it ends up being a little more realistic, unless you really screw it up, but that's okay. So I've assembled some of the various utensils and supplies I'm going to be using for this weathering job. These are some acrylic paints from Vallejo. They're great. You would be amazed at how many people I get asking for Valley Joe. You got them Valley Joe paints? It's Vallejo. So we got some of those. We got our weathering pencils from AK Interactive. Not sure if I'll use these, but the scratching effect that they have is really cool. I'm talking a lot with my hands because you can't see my face right now, so pretend that my hands are my face. And we've got some oil paints from Abteilung 502. These are hobby oil paints. You can really use any oil paints though, so if you have any artist oil paints lying around, you can use those as well. And these are some oil-based coloring filters, so we got Mr. Weathering Color here. There's some steel balls in there, you can give them a shake. Hear that? Isn't that fun? I'm going to list all of these in the description below, so if you're looking for some supplies, you can go pick them up at bchobbies.com. And then I've also got a variety of different solvents here that I'm going to use to kind of blend some stuff in. I really do like the paint job I did on this thing, and I kind of like how it looks clean, but I do want to do a little bit of weathering. I'm not going to go overboard. We're just going to do a little bit, alright? Let's have fun. We're going to have fun today. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some acrylic chipping, and I'm going to do this just with some black acrylic paint. Take my tiny little brush here. It's very small, very tiny. Basically, all we're going to be doing is taking some black paint and gently applying it to certain areas that we think may have chipped, you know? This is just where paint is being removed from it, bumping up against stuff. And it's a knee part, so it's some knee armor. So I can imagine it's probably got a little bit of scuffage going on. It's really easy to go overboard on this kind of thing because as you are working so close in, you kind of lose perspective on what the overall piece looks like. And so when you pull out and you notice you've got all the surface area just absolutely covered in, in all this chipping, it can tend to look a little contrived, and it is contrived because I'm literally deciding what is being scratched and chipped and what's not, but you don't really want it to look that way. So take some time with your weathering, don't rush through it. You can always tell when someone's rushed through it because it looks rushed. And this is something that really should be fun. It should be a learning experience and a fun little process. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding little touches of black here where the paint has gone away. I'm actually going to highlight where some of the paint has been removed after I've done all my black chipping. So we're going to start with this first though. So that's kind of what it looks like. That's what I'm doing here. One way to learn about chipping and just weathering in general is to look on the old Google machine. Go online. Take a look at how tanks and construction equipment have kind of been weathered just by doing what they're designed to do. For tanks, that's rolling around and blowing stuff up, and for construction equipment, that's just dealing with the everyday kind of environment that they are working in. They're going to be around a lot of moving rock and other machinery, and sometimes people not being too careful around them. That's a really good place to start, and I actually have a big folder on my computer and it's just pictures of worn down machinery. So that's something you might want to look into doing for yourself. I'm highlighting the edges of where the paint has been kind of taken away. Now I think I might have mentioned in a different video how weathering in scale for me has always been really difficult. So you're gonna kind of see me struggling a bit here. Because what I mean by that is this model kit, for instance, is a 1:144 scale mobile suit, which means that, it's supposed to be pretty big. Sometimes my chipping can come off a bit too large, like the chips that I take out of these things, just because I find manipulating a brush to do that kind of tiny weathering kind of difficult. So if you're struggling with doing this kind of thing, you're not alone. Hopefully you're able to see on some of these marks here the kind of lighter brown color that I've put on top of them, just to kind of show some depth. Hopefully that's coming across. It's a pretty subtle effect. I want to make sure it doesn't get lost in some of the other weathering. Now I've got some of my Mr. Weathering Color, which is an enamel-based, oil-based weathering fluid here. Now this stuff a little bit goes a long way. This stuff is pretty potent. It's very saturated. Now it looks a little messy right now, but that's because I haven't started blending it in yet. And now I've got some of the weathering color solvant, which is, as far as I can tell, like a kind of thick enamel-based solvent. This stuff works pretty well. I haven't really used it for anything other than blending this stuff, so I'm sure it will work with enamel paints as well and with oil paints, but we'll see, won't we? I think I need a bigger brush. I'm gonna use one of my kind of grosser brushes here to blend this stuff in. But like I said, it's very saturated, it's very potent, and I don't want to overdo it, and it's, oh man, it's so easy to overdo it with this stuff. I gotta say, man, this stuff is pretty great. If you're wanting to weather your Gunpla realistically, go get some of this Mr. Weathering color. It is, it's really nice. Make sure to get some of the solvent with it though. I'm sure you could actually do this with enamel thinner as well, but it's, I don't know, this stuff is designed to you know, be used with this solvent, and I feel like there's something to be said for mitigating any potential problems by just getting the thing that it's supposed to work with. Okay, so hopefully you're able to see now some of the streaking that I'm able to do with this Mr. Weathering color stuff. It's pretty great. I'm pretty happy with how that's turning out. So now I just got to do, you know, the whole rest of the kit, not just one leg. Alright, so you can see some of the Mr. Weathering color that I've put on here has begun to cure. Now this is an oil-based product, and just like the oil paints I'm about to use, they take quite a long time to cure. Oil paints can take 2 days, 3 days, sometimes 5 days, depending on how thickly you're layering it up. But overall, I think the Mr. Weathering color is kind of added a nice subtle layer of depth to the kit, so I'm pretty excited to put some oil paints on and do some deep shades and some highlights as well. So let's get to it. So I have some oil paints here. I'm going to do a bit of a gunk wash on the lower parts of the leg. So I've got 2 different ones here. I have the sepia one and I have my black, and I'm just going to kind of mix them together a little bit. As you can see, they're very thick. And they're gonna go on this thick too, and it's gonna look awful, but that's okay. We're gonna leave it for a little bit, and then we're gonna start wiping it off. So we're just gonna, look at this, we're just gonna paint it right on. Now we're gonna let that sit for a little bit before I start to remove it. The upper body I'm feeling pretty confident in, though I am gonna add a little bit to these vents here, and I'm going to do that with a much smaller brush. So we're just going to go like this, and like that, and I'm going to remove that a little bit here. Now, be careful when you're using oil paints, because they'll get everywhere. They're very, very messy. And, you know, they're oily, so they're kind of hard to get off. So if you get them on anything, just, you know, wash, warm soap and water. If it's a tool or something, that's easier. You can just use your solvent, whatever you're going to be using, like turpentine or mineral spirits, or in this case, I'm going to be using enamel thinner and a couple other things, like a Mr. Weathering color solvent. And just, you know, gently get rid of it. But, yeah, just be careful you don't make too much of a mess, because it is really easy to go overboard with them. Now I'm going to begin removing the oil paint from the kit, and I'm just going to use a cloth to do this for now, and then I'm going to blend it in after with some thinner. So you can see what I've got here. I'm just going to begin removing it. And you can see that it's actually going to be staining the plastic, which is what we're going for. You can wipe pretty vigorously, though I'm trying to be a little bit careful because of the weathering I've already done on this thing. And then I'm pretty much going to have to leave this kit for a few days to make sure everything cures properly. But doing a gunk wash is a really nice way to add some subtle weathering and subtle depth to your colors. So I'm very, very excited for how this is going to turn out. So I've thinned down a bit of faded white oil paint here, and I'm going to be applying it to certain areas that I think should have a highlight. So we're just going to do this. It's going to look really spotty and not very good, but that's, you know, once we start blending it in, it will look much better. That's my hope anyways. Now that I've said that, watch me completely botch the whole thing. But using this many different types of paint layered on top of one another can be a little fickle sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't always turn out just like you want it to. So I'm just going to turn off the camera now and delicately remove as much as I can, because it's kind of hard to do this and keep it in frame because I can't really see what's going on. And then I will show you the finished result. So now we're going to do some acrylic dry brushing, just with some Vallejo paint. I'm just going to be putting on some dirt. So let's just, remember with dry brushing you want to remove pretty much all the paint from your brush. There's no water on here, hence the dry part of the name, and we're going to gently brush it against some of the raised details on the feet here. And those raised details will pick up what little paint is left on the brush. I really love weathering. Weathering is so much fun. So here's the Heavy Gundam all painted, all weathered, and ready to go. I'm super happy with it. It turned out pretty much exactly how I wanted, though I did over-weather it a little bit, so oh well, that's okay. So I'm going to shut up now and show you the finished result, and then in a future video, we will create a diorama base for this kit. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you learned how to use some weathering stuff, or, you know, maybe I sparked some curiosity there into the world of weathering. And I will catch you guys next time on Liam's Hobby Room.